The National Teaching Campaign launched its most aggressive broadcast schedule to date, with 279 nationwide airings of Baha'i videos and commercials. Patricia Campuzano is one of 2 staff members at the Bahai National Center responsible for the retrieval of messages from the 1-800-22-UNITE voicemail box.
In the month of October, we got close to 2,000 calls, and it's increasing by the day.
Once voicemail messages are retrieved, information provided by the seeker is entered into a database.
You can hear in their voices that some of them speak very softly, almost shy, and they ask if we could please help them find out what this is about. And some people are almost defensive, you know, they go, well, I kind of like what you said about unity, you know, or sometimes you hear babies crying in the background and young mothers wanting to hear about it, you know, wanting to teach their children. They tell us, I want to teach my children this. How do I teach them this?
I'm watching you on TV this morning on channel 54, and it's the first time I'm ever watching it, but it seems like a positive thing. You know, oftentimes even myself, I find myself lost in the faith. I don't know where I stand, you know, and it's just true. I have to branch out, and God has allowed us to find our own beliefs.
Well, we know we have an immediate response because when they are calling, we can hear our video playing in the background. You can hear the hunger, you can hear the thirst for the message in every soul that calls. And, you know, we're lucky that, you know, by His grace, the message is falling on fertile ground, because these people mean it. You know, they are calling, they are steered by the message, and now our role is to respond and to nourish them.
Over the past 18 months, the Baha'is of Nashville, Tennessee have made significant strides in the process of community building called for in the 4-year plan. Among signs of progress, 36 new believers, feast attendance is up, and participation in the fund has risen from 30% to 80% of the community. Scores of individual believers have taken initiatives to advance the process of entry by troops through a wide variety of proclamation and teaching activities. A case in point, 8 months ago, 2 believers started the Race Amity Awards program. Awards are presented to individuals in the greater community who have rendered significant services to advance the cause of justice and racial harmony.
And protect you always.
These programs attract scores of non-Baha'is to the Nashville Baha'i Center on the first Saturday of each month, and are beginning to draw media attention as well. On the second Saturday of each month, an elaborate unity feast is organized by a group of 6 women. The gathering celebrates the oneness of religion and the diversity of humankind. People from varied cultures and faiths share readings from their scriptures, interspersed with artistic performances by dancers and musicians from many racial, cultural, and religious backgrounds.
People come to the Baha'i, to the Unity Feast, and they walk in and they say, I don't feel like I'm in Nashville.
It's like an aha. I see people come in and they go, ah, this is what the world is supposed to be like.
Hundreds of people attend these events and become friends of the faith. Of these, some become active seekers. They are invited to attend one of Nashville's regular firesides.
Because, you know, here in Nashville, truly, we have a fireside almost every night. You can go to a fireside here, or take your seeker any night of the week.
Marcia Day holds firesides in her home every Friday night.
Because a year and a half ago here, things was very quiet. There was not much happening. But I had to look at myself and say, well, if it isn't happening, maybe it's my fault.
Feeling the need to act immediately, Marcia asked a realtor to show her property in African-American neighborhoods. That same day, she bought a house just down the street from longtime believers Casey and Alice Walton, becoming the first white homeowner in the area.
Work in the Board of Education and to see that when children...
Local radio talk show host Wanda Powell and Chance McClin began attending Marcia's firesides after Wanda received a Race Amity Award for her program, Restore Our Communities.
And I never, ever, ever felt the love of a group of people who claim to be children of God that I found with the Baha'is.
I started going to as many gatherings as I could. And I found out, interestingly enough, that I was doing so voluntarily, you know, and with anticipation.
And when I found out, Marcia came on my talk show a couple of weeks ago, and she explained to the 2.3 million listeners on my radio show who the Baha'is were and what they were about. And that was the first time that I had actually made up in my mind that I would become a Baha'i.
There was that little something that said, hey, this is it. This is it. No more looking, no more searching, no more seeking. If you turn and walk away, you're going to miss something spectacular.
My spirit is free, and I feel free being around the Baha'is, and I'm glad to now be a Baha'i.
I'll continue to read the teachings of Baha'u'llah, and if they say go to India, I'll be in India. But I'll be in India and I'll be happy. If they say go to Israel, I'll be in Israel, and I'll be in Israel happy. So wherever they say go, whatever I'm led to do, that's where I'll be.
And I tell the Baha'is all the time that this house is the house of Baha. It's not my house. It's their house. It's a teaching house. That's what it's for.
The Baha'i Association at Vanderbilt University has also experienced tremendous growth. In September 1998, there were just 3 Baha'is on campus. Today, there are more than a dozen, and all are active.
I think most of our declarations have come from small, close-knit firesides, where we have about 2 or 3 people inside a single room, and they're able to freely express their views and ask questions, and we're able to answer the questions so that they're directed specifically towards them.
Ghani gave me a call as well, and when he called me, he said it was like the second week of school, and he said, well, we've already had a proclamation event and we're having a fireside this Friday, can you come? And I think there was something else going on also. And so immediately I knew that the expectations were very high for this group.
The article today. So we're going to have our design.
Wednesday night is the weekly meeting of the Spiritual Assembly. The Assembly guides the entire process and is vigilant in its efforts to consolidate each new believer in this growing community.
So before they meet with the Assembly and their declaration is accepted, we have a mature believer meeting with them, deepening them a little bit into the importance of the fast, importance to the fund.
In our community, I would say almost 70–80% of our new believers, the day that they come to this chamber and they sign their card, they make the deposit, they make the contribution and go. In last 2 years, fund has increased as a dollar-wise, 57%. From 190 to 147, 57% dollar-wise within 2 years. It's very important we meet our goal, which is 190,000.
The Assembly has been able to focus the community on the importance of the fund, not to have so much distractions of buy this cookie, buy this dinner, or buy this lamp.
That Shoghi Effendi says to be excellent in all things, that everything that the Baha'i community strives to do, we should strive towards perfection.
So we balance between devotional part, between administrative and social. I remember before, when the feast was done, within 5 minutes, everybody was gone home. It was a cookie, grab and go. Now, by 10:30, we have to ask them to leave.
Acclaimed guitarist Louis Shelton is one of a number of highly gifted musicians in the Nashville community. Together with the others, he gives selflessly of his talents, often recording background tracks in his studio to enhance the quality of feasts, firesides, and other gatherings. As the 4-year plan draws to a close in Nashville, the constituent elements of the individual, the institutions, and the community are working in harmony. The result is a harvest of new believers.
If there is something going on, a fireside, it's going to be a big event, I will get 3 phone calls from people who just got my number because it's on a list that says, hey, do you want to come to this? And I think that's a big deal.
The community really embraced me and gave me a lot of attention, needed attention, that is.
Whether you were known or not known, it was my first time, it made no difference. People treated me just the same, they received me just the same, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
To me, it just felt like my family unit was just getting larger and everybody welcomed me in, and it was just a great warm greeting. It felt really good. It felt like coming home almost.
I don't think I can find the right words, or one word just couldn't describe the way that I'm feeling, because it is just, I guess it's phenomenal to know that the things that you've always believed in, you can now actually see it. And to see what I have seen, as I am now a Baha'i, I thought you had to die to go to heaven to see this stuff. And I mean, it's wonderful. So words just can't describe what I've felt and what I've seen on this week.
Sandy and George Sigmund live in the town of North in South Carolina. For the past 6 years, they have been running the North Family Community School, which teaches adult women the basics of reading, writing, and math.
In the North community, we figured that the average reading level here was about 4th grade.
Schools have problems here, and obviously they've had problems for a long time, or we wouldn't have all these women coming in now.
Well, I've helped my daughter do some of her work, and I helped her do math, and she brought the paper home. I thought I was doing it right, but she got an F. And I knew then that when she brought the paper home, I had to go back and get my education.
The Sigmunds first became aware of the problem of illiteracy when they volunteered in the relief effort after Hurricane Hugo.
Here we had a major disaster, and people didn't know how to fill out forms to take care of themselves. They didn't know where to go. They had riots for food. There are more than 50% of the people who live in South Carolina who do not have a high school diploma.
Sandy and George began volunteering as teachers in the General Equivalency Degree program at the local high school.
I could see over and over and over again how important education was, and it was on my mind that I had been saying prayers about it for a long time. And when we got back from World Congress, we had to open the school. I mean, we never even talked about it. We just knew we had to do it.
If we look back to 1983, when the Universal House of Justice wrote that letter, October 1983, about social and economic development, and they said that all Baha'i communities should engage in this on some level. I mean, that was the essence of the letter, that we all could begin engaged in this, and that we had developed as Baha'i communities with fundamentally just teaching the faith to people, and now this needed to be an example of the faith in action.
Having been actively involved with many of North's civic organizations, the Sigmunds were able to rally support for the endeavor. The North Family Community School, also known as the Challenge Center, opened its doors on April 12, 1993. Sandy quit her job to become the school's full-time administrator, while George worked overtime to support both the family and the school.
All of our friends and family members and everyone else told us we were crazy to try to do what we were doing. But we were convinced that what we were doing was the right thing.
By continually focusing on the education of women, the Challenge Center lives up to its mission to strengthen families through education, assisting them in escaping the cycle of persistent poverty.
I would like to, my goal is right now is to get my GED. I want to show my daughter that I could do it, so if I could do it, then she could do it.
The school has gave me confidence. It has taught me you do not use the word can't. That is not in our vocabulary.
Today, the school survives through grants from the Jobs Training Partnership Act, the Department of Social Services, the Employment Security Commission, money from the county, and support from local Baha'i communities.
In North, as the project has grown, they've engaged a broader spectrum of the community. They have social service agencies engaged, they have ministers engaged, and various other civic organizations engaged, as well as individuals. And so naturally, people are finding out about the Baha'i faith.
You can't hardly do well out in the world now with just a high school education, but if you can't read and write, you're at a big disadvantage. Ms. Sigmund is taking care of that, and I want you to know the community as a whole is real proud of that. We appreciate that.
This is the most important thing that we know of at this time in this community. I have told many people that if I have to take 2 jobs, if I have to work a 3rd job, that the school is here and that the school will stay open.
Their faith and their perseverance, really in line with the covenant through the House of Justice direction, is what I think has attracted the power of the Holy Spirit to guide this project to fruition.
Tourist brochures describe New Mexico as a land of enchantment. From the white dunes of her sandy deserts, the ethereal subterranean labyrinths of Carlsbad, to the high lakes and rugged mountains, New Mexico presents a subtle, ever-changing kaleidoscope of color, light, and rugged beauty, a mecca for the visual artist. Little wonder then that 3 Baha'i artists in Las Cruces, New Mexico, have combined talents and energies to create a social and economic development project with distinctive aesthetic qualities.
Mariposas is butterfly in Spanish, and part of it is symbolic of who we are. We're trying to unleash human potential, and butterflies come from a very constrained, tight area into freedom and fullness of their beauty. And so are we, as women and men, learning to work together to better our lives.
The Bland family moved to Las Cruces following years of service at the Baha'i World Center. On this morning, like many others, Sandra Bland's home becomes the bustling Mariposa Center. The women are gathered to help fulfill a $4,000 order for their products.
Now this, I've painted a figure
Lola Wilson describes herself as a desert artist. She also brings decades of professional accounting experience to the service of the project. She uses her studio for hand-dyeing the silk that will become elegant scarves for some of the finest department stores on the West Coast. Vicky Poye is a highly respected textile artist whose tapestries depicting Baha'i themes have adorned the walls of the nation's capital and the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette. In 1997, she joined with the minister of the Hispanic Presbyterian Church in Roswell in search of a way to provide economic empowerment to area women, most of whom must balance the conflicting demands of work and child rearing. They made friends with others engaged in similar work, like these women at a Catholic center in Anthony, who manufacture simple, inexpensive textile items like handbags, Bible covers, and clothing items. The results of their efforts producing commodity textiles were not fully satisfying, and these women turned instinctively towards the creation of artistic products. With a confidence born of mutual support and encouragement, they set for themselves a higher standard of excellence and began creating fine textile art using the finest materials, silks, the finest metallic threads, computerized sewing machines. New partnerships were formed. Karen's creative fabric provided additional space and machines for women to come and work on their textile art. The New Mexico Arts Council provided a grant to the Spiritual Assembly of Las Cruces to help develop the project.
The butterflies evolved when I was playing around with their materials, and I made this scarf with 29 butterflies on it. And then I made some and showed my sister-in-law, who is a Nordstrom jewelry designer, and she said, "You should make these to sell." And so we started to develop them, and we sent them to the buyer, and she bought them immediately.
I think they're just a wonderful retail item.
With their butterflies, the women had connected to the high fashion trend for wearable art. Suddenly, the challenge became one of developing the production capacity to fill the orders. The 15 women in the project work on different aspects of production. Susan Isaacs and her mother Connie Castillo were among the first to join the project.
And I told Susie, they're going to give sewing classes, and I'm always interested in learning if it comes to sewing. To
Working in their own studio, a trailer next to their house outside Roswell, Connie and Susan begin by sewing the main lines of the butterfly with black thread. The process is repeated with metallic threads to provide the color and pattern. Once the sewing is complete, the water-soluble backing can be dissolved away in warm water. Rosa Abramos and Vicky Furman are adding the beads which form the eyes, tail, and antenna of the bugs. It is a task they can do at home and still provide quality care for their children. Tatiana is creating prototypes for new products, many of which are being prepared to test market potentials. Susan has become vice president of Mariposas. Her new responsibilities include training new women as well as representing the company at trade shows.
Never in a million years would I have ever thought that I would be where I am now, because I was not a talker. I was very shy and very quiet, and I liked to be ignored. Now I'm talking in front of people and giving advice and trying to teach other women, and it's just something that I never thought I would be doing.
The project is also changing the dynamics of family life. Chuck Isaacs now stays at home with children while Susan is working.
This program has really drawn us all closer together, and I believe with Vicky and Susan and the other ladies of Mariposa Esperando that they're really doing some good for the communities, because they're making, instead of a work environment, it's more of a family environment.
The women of Mariposas have won many friends and admirers. Among them, Andrew Krynick, whose company manufactures the heirloom quality threads used in the butterflies.
They use our materials, and at the same time, we sell their finished products. And the whole story of the Mariposa Group has been very appealing to us as well.
What makes this thing work is a partnership with many like-minded people. And this is part of what the House of Justice has said in their 4-year plan, that we must form alliances with like-minded people. We propose that you come together as a group to learn the training.
These women are hearing about the Mariposas project for the first time. The meeting was called by S.B. Hoguin of the Department of Housing and Urban Development to help expand Mariposas to more women in need. These immigrant women live in scattered ramshackle settlements in the countryside called colonias, severely lacking in basic infrastructure like running water, sewers, roads, and schools. The first step toward empowerment lies in the recognition that they themselves could make such beautiful artistic products. Considerable training is required to acquire the necessary skills. Now, however, state agencies are willing to fund the training programs to help these women participate in Mariposas.
Working out of their home or working close to their home, where they can be home when they pick up their kids from school. They can feed them and then work in the evening a little bit more. I think this is a project that's actually needed in our colonias.
In 2 short years, the Mariposa project has gone from a dream to a promising company, attracting attention throughout the southwestern region. This recent reception drew representatives from businesses, local, state, and national governments, and various civic and religious organizations, some of whom drove hundreds of miles to show their support.
So this program draws me with every fiber of my being, and this is a textile arts program.
It's small now, but I think it has the potential to really grow.
I think that they have a very great vision, a very big vision.
I think this is a wonderful activity or a wonderful type of a real work that they can express their individual talent.
It's clear that this is one that had a real focus, had a real goal, has a real life.
But I'm real pleased to see something like this kind of effort by our local residents.
Baha'u'llah said that commerce is a heaven whose sun is trustworthiness and whose moon is truthfulness.
House of Justice said to do it. What more encouragement do we need?
I'm excited about the women. They have more talent than anyone I've ever seen. And they, like Mariposas, is like the butterflies. They're starting to fly.
The Ark and Terraces projects on Mount Carmel have entered the last phases of construction. At the end of August, the newly furnished Center for the Study of the Sacred Texts received its first staff occupants. The placement of distinctive green roofing tiles represents the final touches on the exterior of the International Teaching Center. An outstanding feature of the interior is a 400-seat auditorium, which will have state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment. Landscaping has begun between the Teaching Center and the seat of the Universal House of Justice. The creation of a wildlife corridor is underway near terraces 12, 13, and 14. The colorful array of plants have welcomed home birds native to Mount Carmel and will ensure the sustenance of the mountain's environment. 3,500 cubic feet of earth at the foot of the mountain has been excavated to make way for an elaborate entrance plaza and fountain. The seats of Baha'u'llah's world-embracing institutions are drawing the acclaim and admiration of the Israeli public and elected officials. In September, more than 200 dignitaries from around the world visited the terraces in conjunction with Agritech, an international agricultural exhibition held annually in Israel. The ministers and high-ranking government officials were escorted to the Shrine of the Baha and then gathered in the Pilgrim House, where they received informational material about the Baha'i faith. The Council for a Beautiful Israel honored the work on the terraces for the second time with its annual Magshim Award. The President of Israel, Mr. Ezer Weizmann, presented the award during a ceremony held in the official presidential home.
From the President of Israel and Mrs. Herzog.
Mrs. Ora Herzog, widow of former President Herzog, lauded the efforts of Mount Carmel projects, describing the unmatched beauty of the gardens, which are judged to be without rival. In addition, Haifa's mayor, Mr. Amram Mitzna, presented an award citing the gardens as the city's prime tourist attraction. In the words of the Universal House of Justice, the beauty and magnificence of the gardens and terraces are symbolic of the nature of the transformation which is destined to occur both within the hearts of the world's peoples and in the physical environment of the planet.